Well, good morning, Three Creeks. My name is John Scott IV, and I get to be the Connections Pastor here, where our vision is to help people to find and follow God. We are in week 9. Week 9, people, the home stretch of our message series that we have entitled Chasing Wisdom. And boy, what a chase it has been so far. I pray that it has blessed you just as much as it has blessed us. You are currently watching part 1 of this week's message. I want to remind you guys that we offer a part 2 as well that you can find at threecreekschurch.com, on our Facebook page, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Just make sure you take the time to listen to both part 1 and part 2 to get the full picture of the message as a whole together. I am calling all Three Creekers, if that's even what we call ourselves, but everybody who loves to serve, we have an opportunity to serve our beautiful, wonderful city of Gahanna. We're calling it Serve Gahanna Week, and it starts tomorrow. From August 3rd to August 7th, we get the opportunity to pass out lunches to people in need in our community. We'll be passing them out at Goshen Lane Elementary and also at Gahanna Middle School West. You guys do not want to miss out. We have 25 slots left, and I know we can fill them. I know we can get it done. Come out, have a heart to serve the people, and let's put some smiles on individuals' faces here in our wonderful community. Hey, if you are a person that really wants to help advance us in our vision of helping people to find and follow God, we want to give you the opportunity to consider giving to our church financially. You can do that in 3 ways. You can give online at threecreekschurch.com. You can text a dollar amount to the number that's found here on the screen, or you could mail a check to the address that's also found here on the screen. Here in a few moments, we're gonna have Joel come through and give us a message. But before we do that, we wanna give you guys some time to consider giving to our church financially.
Three Creeks Church, Chasing Wisdom, Week 9. My name is Joel, and I get to be the pastor here, and welcome. You already know what I'm talking about today because you saw the title in the link to the video or the podcast. Whatever you clicked to listen or watch this, you saw that we're talking about generosity, which is oftentimes a word that pastors use to say, hey, I want to talk about money. And we are going to talk about money, but we're going to talk about more than just money. We're going to talk about having a generous heart and what that does to us. And I think if you're a part of the Three Creeks family, if you've been with us for a while, I think you're going to love this because I'm going to kind of give you an update of the last year, kind of a prediction of where we're going. And then if you're not a part of our church, if you're tuned in for the first time or you live somewhere else, I think you're going to find this exciting and encouraging because I'm going to tell you some stories of what God is doing through our church and through the generosity of the people in our church. So wherever you're at, I think you're going to love the next 25 minutes or so because I'm excited to tell you about it. A few weeks ago, at the end of June, I gave a little preview before one of my messages where I said, hey, our fiscal year ends on June 30th. And there's a gap between where we are and where we need to be at that point so that our church can end the year in the black. And on June 30th, somebody from our church texted me and said, hey, did we make it? How close are we? What's the gap? Because if there's still a gap, I want to make it happen. And I was just like blown away by this person's love and care for our church. So I didn't know at the time, I didn't know the answer. So I sent a message over to our finance team. I said, hey, did we make it? How close are we? And they said, we made it. We're already $1,000 over. Like, tell them that God has provided. And so I sent a message back to that first person. I said, hey, listen, keep your money, get the boat. I didn't say that. I just said, listen, I said, thank you so much for loving and caring for and wanting to be generous to your church by the grace of God. We made it. And so let's celebrate that together. So I want to tell you, Three Creeks, that last year our church kind of brought in about $381,000 And if you're anything like me, you look at that number, you go, that is so much money. And I am just thrilled that I'm not individually and personally deciding where all that goes. I'm thrilled to be on a team of generous people who, when we kind of formulate our church budget, we're looking at Proverbs 11:25 as like the model, the principle, the proverb through which we want to make all of our financial decisions. And that says this, that a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. So as a church, when we make our budget, we want to be generous. We want to refresh others. We want to do everything we can to be in the business of refreshing other people. So for the last few weeks, I've just been overjoyed that you gave so much last year. I'm also looking back at all the things that we spent money on last year, and I just find myself doing these like little like fist bumps, like yes, like that was refreshing for other people. And I want to tell you about a couple of them. Maybe you've heard these before, but maybe you haven't. Maybe you don't know this about our church. Last year, we gave $30,000 to our church plant, Contrast Church. We're going to give them $20,000 more this year, at least, because Contrast Church, Trey and Sarah came into the mix at Three Creeks about a year ago. We said, build a team, get some momentum. You guys, they have 49 people on their launch team. 49 people that are going down to Grandview, an area that has very few or no life-giving, Jesus-centered churches, and they're going to go and bring light to a pretty dark place in our city. 49 people are going with them. And the bottom line is this: church planting is the best way to reach unchurched and unreached people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's it. I mean, you can't argue with that. It is the best way to do it. So we're all in. We give $30,000 to them. We gave over $18,000 in local impact ministry, right? So EL classes and Gehanna gift shop and Hope in a Box and partnerships with Grin, partnerships with Neighborhood Bridges, we supported a bunch of people that work for Campus Crusade at Ohio State. And the list goes on and on. I don't have time to tell you all the ways in which we supported people in our city, in Gehanna. We gave over $16,000 away in global impact ministry, which, if you stick with me to the end of this message, I've got a more specific update. But if you remember, we kind of put this challenge out. We wanted to start this school, right? Project Sabah, with desks and chairs. We're going to buy land and build a wall, and we're going to be part of this new Christian school in Burkina Faso. And I promise you, if you stick with me, you will love the end of this message, because I've got a special update about it. We gave over $18,000 away in generosity, which is simply a fund. When we identify people in our church or outside of our church who they just need a boost, they need a bed, they need a meal, they need a hospital bill helped out with, they need their rent, they need their water, electricity kept on. Like, we are able to give money to them to help them. And it's awesome. And I get to be the person who kind of dishes it all out. I'm kind of the funnel. And I'm just telling you, I just feel so privileged to get to do that. Like, I could talk to you for 3 hours and I would not get to the end of the stories of all that I've been able to give to because you've given to our church. Over $18,000 dished out, one sometimes $25 at a time here and there. It's just amazing. And I'm just telling you, we're trying to be a church that is a refresher of others, a blessing to other people. Proverbs 11:25. A generous person or a generous church will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. Now that doesn't mean that it's coming back to us. That doesn't mean that if we scratch somebody else's back, they'll definitely scratch ours. That's really not what the proverb means. What this proverb means is that whoever refreshes others, you're going to be refreshed in the refreshing of others. Generous people are the happiest people alive. And we believe as a church that the giver gets more than the receiver. Generous people are the happiest people alive. They're the most content. They're the least addicted to things. They're the least easily rattled people. Generous people are your favorite people to be around. Generous people are your favorite people to follow. And the big idea for today is this, that generous people are God's favorite people to bless. Generous people are God's favorite people to bless. Now, I know what you're thinking. Like, did Joel just turn into like a TV evangelist that's about to sell me some holy water? No, I'm not. Listen, and let me be serious for a minute. The health and wealth and prosperity gospel is a distortion of this. And and I don't say this lightly, it's a lie from the pit of hell. It's not true. There's no contractual exchange where if we give, we're going to receive something of equal or greater return in some other way. That's not how this works. But what's so dangerous about the prosperity gospel is that there is a half-truth in it. Because generous people are God's favorite people to bless, but the blessing doesn't necessarily come like we think that it will. Like, it doesn't necessarily come today or tomorrow, and it doesn't necessarily come as a clean bill of health or a deposit in our bank account. That we cannot limit God's blessings to those small things, but God's favorite people to bless are generous people. The reason why, because God wants to bless generous people because he knows what they're going to do with it. They're not going to hoard it. They're going to give it away. Like money, I heard somebody say this. I think it's so true. Money is like manure. You stack it up and it stinks. You spread it out and it makes things grow. And so God, he wants to bless generous people because he knows what they're going to do with it. They're going to do well with it. Jesus talked about money a ton in the New Testament. One of the things that he said is in the book of Luke. He's talking about money and he says, listen, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. What Jesus is saying is that he's watching us. He's watching to see how well we will manage what has been given to us. And if we can be trusted with a little bit, he's inclined to give us more because we can be trusted. And I am not just talking about money at all. I'm talking about your time. I'm talking about what you're good at, your talent. I'm talking about forgiveness and grace. We're just supposed to lavishly, generously just give grace and forgiveness away. I'm talking about your life goals. Don't make them all about you. Make them about other people. Be generous in this way. God's favorite people to bless are generous people. It's true. I want to tell you a story. I hesitate to tell it. I've gone back and forth, but at the end of the day, I have more of a peace about sharing it than I do about not sharing it. So I hope that you'll trust me, trust my motives. And if you don't trust my motives, I hope that you'll give me some grace. A couple weeks ago, Morgan and I found out about a family in our church. Dad lost his job because of the coronavirus. He's looking for another job. They had some savings. Savings were kind of coming low. Healthcare coverage was about to end. So this is a family that's in need. And a lot of times when this happens, I'm able to take some of that generosity money that I was talking about, and I'm able to kind of dish it out. It's a perfect example of a situation where we want to be generous. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, but God just put it on my heart for this instance specifically that he didn't want me to use that money. He wanted me to personally be the one that was going to give generously to them to help them. So I got with Morgan and we talked about it and I prayed about it, and I just really was convinced that God wanted me to personally give to help this family. So we gave them $500. And as I was writing the check, as we were making the move to be obedient to God, I just had this feeling of like, man, God's got me. Like, God has provided for me for all of my life. He's going to continue to provide for me. We're not rolling in it. It was sacrificial for us, but we're not missing a meal. I got all the clothes I need. We love our house. Like that's not what hangs in the balance in this instance. It was just what God wanted us to do. And I just had this overwhelming feeling that, you know what, God's got us. He's going to provide for us. And so 2 weeks later, Morgan goes out to the mailbox at our house and brings in a card from a man named Dave and a woman named Deborah. They live in Gehenna. That's all I know about them. I've never heard of them before. Never heard of them. And they wrote a card, handwritten. This is intended to bless your family. It's intended to be a gift for you, for your marriage, and for your children. And in it, in the envelope, in the card, is a check for $500. And I'm getting chills talking about it. I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. And I feel like I should say this. It doesn't always work this way. Okay? Josh, put that on the bottom of the screen real quick. It doesn't always work this way. But God was using this as a moment to remind me that he's got me. He was going, Joel, thank you for giving me a chance to provide for you, to show you that I see you, and that generous people are my favorite people to bless. Proverbs 11:25, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed. I tell you, coming out of that experience of feeling led by God to be generous and doing it, I can't say that I do it every time God prompts me. I wish I could, but I don't. But coming out of that experience where I did obey God, and then 2 weeks later, God just blesses us through Dave and Deborah, I just feel so inspired to be more generous, right? I want that feeling again. I want that moment again where we our jaws just drop as we look at this check going, no way. And I hope in telling you that story that you too will crave a moment where God can provide for you, where you can't, where you have given away too much and God blesses you in return. I want that for you. I told you that, y'all gave, our church brought in $381,000 in the last fiscal year. And let me just tell you a little bit about where we're heading. So we're planning, we're preparing, we're believing that for a 22% increase, that God will bring in $465,000 in this upcoming year. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Since COVID has happened, our giving, it has dipped. January, February, we were right around $30,000 a month coming in, and then over the last few months, it's dipped down to about $24,000 a month. For us to hit $465,000, our monthly average for the whole year, starting July 1st, needs to be about $38,000. So we're talking about a $14,000 gap between where we are and where we need to be every month. Now, I don't personally know of a treadmill salesman in our church right now who's rolling around in gold coins, because of coronavirus. I don't know of a millionaire in our church that's just going to be able to make up that difference with, one check. I don't know who that is. And frankly, even if I did know who that was, I don't think that would be the healthiest thing for our church. I think this is something where our whole church needs to look at what we're giving and go, am I being generous? And listen, I'm talking to myself. I'm having conversations with Morgan going can we give more? Can we be more generous? Do we believe Proverbs 11:25 is true? Can we as the Trainer family give more so that the ministry, like a lot of our methods of ministry are changing? Our mission is the same. It's to help people find and follow God, and we don't want that to stop. Obviously, we're being wise, and we're not spending money on renting facilities right now, and we're cutting costs wherever we can, but we don't want ministry to stop. And the bottom line is this. I don't really know how to say this nicely, so I'm just going to say it and trust that you'll believe. It's definitely true. There's some people in our church who are already giving so generously, more than they ever imagined that they would give. And you're being obedient to God right now. I don't know who you are, but God does. I don't see those things on purpose, but God does, and He is so pleased. But if I do the math and I look at what's coming in and how many people go to our church, there is definitely people in our church who are not being generous. There's people in our church who aren't giving at all. And there's people in our church who could be and should be giving a lot more to our church, but they're not, out of fear or security or whatever. I don't know what it is, but I don't really know how to say that nicely. There's a lot of people in our church who should be giving generously more to our church. When I look at $465,000, if you're anything like me, you go, man, that is a lot of money. And so let me just tell you a little bit about what that was going to do different than last year. If there's going to be a 22% increase in what comes in, we want there to be a 50% increase output as to what we're going to get to do. So we really are praying and believing that God will give us a ministry space, kind of some office buildings, a place that we can have team meetings and things like that somewhere in Gehenna. That's going to be a cost. We really believe that God wants us to start saving for our long-term future. We really haven't done a lot of that yet. We feel like that's the wise thing to do right now in the life of our church. So we have about $40,000 that we're going to set aside to plan for our future, whether that be a building or land, we don't know, but we just believe that's what God wants us to do. We obviously want to keep funneling money to local impact and global impact and generosity. We're going to give Contrast Church a lot more money because we believe in what they're doing. And if you want to see the whole budget, if you want to see every single line, I would be thrilled to email that to you, because we are proud of the way that we are dispersing and allocating our money. We are allocating our money. We want to be a refresher to others. And I think that if you comb through our budget, you would see this church wants to be a refresher of other people. When I hear $465,000, let me just be honest with you for a second. I think to myself, that is so much money. And if I'm just somebody who just gives a little bit here and there, maybe a couple $100 here, maybe a $20 bill there, when I look at $465,000, if I'm a person that just gives a little bit, I just have to wonder, like, does it even matter? Like, does it even count? Like, what I'm giving is like a drop in the bucket. Like, why even give if what I'm giving even counts? And where is it going? Well, I told you earlier in the message that I was going to tell you an update about Burkina Faso. I had a chance to sit down with John Arnold. If you remember this, Christmas Eve this past year, we kind of said, hey, let's raise $14,000. We're going to start a school in a neighborhood with handicapped children who aren't allowed to go to school in the public school system. They're going to start a Christian school in this neighborhood, and they need desks, they need chairs, they need this land that's adjacent to the building that they already have, and they need a wall around the whole thing. That's what we said. We said, Three Creeks, you can do it. We can do it. And we did it. We raised the $14,000. We sent them a check. And you guys, I got to sit down on a Zoom call with John Arnold this week, and he gave us an update. I want you to know that everything that you gave to that, it mattered. Most of the gifts to that project were like $25, and it mattered. Check this out.
Hey, we're back with John Arnold. You've never been with us in the flesh, but I feel like we've seen your face and picture a few times, so we're starting to get to know you. Currently in Georgia, however, in constant communication with what God is doing on the ground in Burkina Faso. Project Saba is what we called it here at Three Creeks last Christmas. And we want an update. What's God doing there in that neighborhood with that school?
Well, first of all, thank you, Three Creeks. You don't even have any idea what you have meant to Sector 30 there, the Saba area, and also to Tise, where you built that church and helped Pastor Timothy. You have no idea. And if one thing that you hear from all of this, I want you to remember, you can't change the world, but you can change the world for one. And it's not about looking at the whole big picture, but it's about looking at what you can do just to help one person at a time. And you help that one, and then you help another, and then you help another as the God allows you. So just remember that today. And as far as Project Saba goes for you, the wall around the school has been completed. It is beautiful. Everybody's talking about it because it's so distinguishing in that little village setting there. It just sticks out with that brilliant color. And it's important because it needed to be walled in order for school to be able to start this coming October. Otherwise, they would deem it unfinished and it would have to wait for the following year. Also, the benches, the desks that the kids will be using, we ordered 90 of those benches, which Three Creeks was paying for. The Pastor Yusuf is really excited because, school's coming up pretty soon. They're going to be doing enrollment in the next month, August and September, and then school starts the 1st of October. I'm excited because of your giving and your heart. There are going to be those kids that come from handicapped families, that come from families that just can't make it. And their kids are going to have a chance. They're going to be able to go to school. and have a chance at life instead of just sitting at home or working out in the fields. And that's because of you at Three Creeks. You sitting in those chairs there thinking, well, I really can't do anything. Yes, you can. And you have done something. And just like I said, you are going to change the life for one, and then another. And I just really want to thank you for that. I want to encourage you because the work's not done. There's still a lot that we can do. We have been doing food distributions, and God is doing great things through these food distributions because most of these people are Muslim that have come from the north that have really never ever heard about Jesus Christ. And we have had many come to Christ. In one distribution alone, we had 108 come and give their hearts to Jesus. And the following week, we baptized them, all 108. And there are more that are following because they say, you Christians, you talk about Jesus and this love, and you're the only ones that are out there trying to help us. You are trying to help us. So we know that your way must be the right way. And so there's a lot of things coming up, and I know that you will be excited to be a part of it, and we will be excited for you to be a part of it with us.
Yep.
And thank you. Thank you, Three Creeks. Remember, you can't change the world, but you can change the world for one.
That is the best. And I'm so thankful that we got to be a part of that. I'm so thankful that we are a church that believes that it's just good to refresh other people and to be generous. And I want you to love giving to Three Creeks Church because you know that it counts. Because you know that every dollar that you give counts. I want you to love it. And I want you to know that God's favorite people to bless are generous people. I also got to sit down with Mark Artrip. He's the lead pastor of Movement Church. He's one of my best friends. And I just think he models generosity so well. And I got to sit down with him. He talks about generosity, not just with money, but with everything that we have. Check out this 45-second clip of my conversation with Mark.
You know, if there's something that you're like, for some reason, it's so nice or it's become such an idol, that you're not willing to honor God with it. I think that might be an example that maybe that not for all time that thing is too nice, but maybe it's too nice for you and your heart. I mean, I've had moments. I have a Taylor guitar that I've had since college, and there have been moments, that people have said, "Hey, I'm leading worship. Can I borrow your guitar?" Through college, through when I was in student ministry, and there were some moments that I was tempted to be like, "Why don't you borrow someone's PV guitar?" And so. But it's almost this test I have for myself. If I wouldn't let someone go get mulch with my truck, then I've got a nicer truck than my heart can handle. And if I wouldn't let someone borrow my guitar, then I've got a nicer guitar than my heart can handle.
That is part 2 of this week's message, and I hope that you will watch it or listen to it wherever you're watching or listening to this one. It's really good. It's pretty funny and also pretty encouraging, so I hope you'll tune in. Let me just kind of close with this final thought. I had a friend who his dad was dying. His dad was in a hospital on his dying bed, literally. But they had a few days left, and they were asking him questions about his life, reflecting on it. This man had given 10% of his income. He had tithed to his local church for 60 years. 60 years. And somebody in the room asked him a question. I don't know how they came up with it, but they asked him the question, what would your life have been like if you hadn't given all that money to your church? And he took a deep breath and he smiled and he said, well, I'd have a lot more money, but I wouldn't be as rich. That has just stuck with me because that is how I want to die. I want to be old. I want to have no regrets. I want to have lived my life with open hands, wise, happy, and rich. Rich in what God has done for what I've dished out. I would just love to die that way. And at the end of the day, listen to me, at the end of the day, God set the precedent. God was generous first. God generously sent his son, and then Jesus Christ, his son, generously gave his life for us with no guarantee that we would be generous in return. And so because of the model set before me, because God was so generous with me, I've been ruined by the generosity of God. And so it just makes sense to live my life like this and go, man, I just want to be a refresher of others. Three Creeks, I hope that you will go. I hope you will be generous this week to give, because you believe that the giver, they get more than the receiver. I hope you believe that. I hope you'll refresh others. I love you. We'll see you soon.
Well, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in with us here this morning. And what a great message we had the opportunity just to dive into and learn and gain wisdom in. And I pray that you guys would take this away from the message this morning, that generous people are God's favorite people to bless. Generous people are God's favorite people to bless. And I pray that we would be those generous people. Guys, again, Serve Gehenna Week. This week, August 3rd through the 7th, we need you 25 slots. I know we can do it. We can fill those slots. We're giving out lunches at Goshen Lane and at Gehenna Middle School West. Be sure to register online at threecreekschurch.com, or you can register by clicking the link in the description box below. We want to see you guys there. Let's serve and love on the people in our community well. We love you guys. Can't wait to see you back here next week. Take care.